You're watching TimesXP. I'm Driti Atri, and here are the biggest stories that are making headlines across the globe today. So, let's start with it. Greta Thunberg deported from Israel. Well, Swedish activist Greta Thunberg, part of the global Sumut flotilla delivering aid to Gaza, was intercepted by Israeli naval forces and then deported. Well, the activist reported harsh detention conditions. Eyewitnesses described limited water, dehydration, and very dirty cells during the detention. The deportation sparked global debate over humanitarian aid access and freedom of the protest. Trump slams Greta on social media, while Donald Trump called Greta crazy and troublemaker after her Gaza flotilla activism. He also accused her of siding with anti-Israel groups and mocked her past activism as well. Social media erupted with polarized reaction, showing how climate advocacy now intersects with global diplomacy. Gaza blockade humanitarian crisis. Israel maintains a naval blockade on Gaza, citing security concern. Now here, activists claim that the blockade creates severe shortages of food, water, medical aid, everything. Over 2 million Palestinians face restricted access to essential services, raising international humanitarian alarm. Global Sumut flotilla's mission, well, the flotilla carrying medical supplies from Europe aimed to provide humanitarian aid. In fact, Israel called it a political stunt, saying that all aid must go through official checkpoints, not illegally. In fact, organizers argue that bureaucratic restrictions delay critical assistance and endanger lives in Gaza. Greta accuses the world of silence. After deportation, Greta criticized Israel for inhumane treatment and accused global leaders of ignoring Gaza's suffering. In fact, millions have shared her post online, while pro-Israel groups push back heavily. Now, this incident highlights tensions between activism and state sovereignty. Russia-United States tensions rise over Tomahawk. Well, Russian President Mr. Vladimir Putin issued a final warning to Donald Trump over possible US supply of Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, calling it a dangerous escalation. Now, here analysts say that this could redefine the United States-Russia relationship if implemented. NATO allies are monitoring everything very closely for any signs of conflict escalation. Tomahawk missile threat explained, well, these are the long-range missiles that could strike deep into Russian territory. Now here, Ukraine claims that they are very important for them for defense and counter strikes as well. Experts warn that any delivery risks triggering direct confrontation between the major powers, Russia and US. US prepares for escalation. Satellite images show increased Russian military activity near western borders, with their Iskander missile and S-400 defense systems deployed over there. In the meantime, Russian state media has amplified warning, preparing domestic audience for potential retaliation. Observers fear miscalculation could actually spiral into a larger regional conflict. Trump faces tough decisions. The United States wants to support Ukraine but risks direct confrontation with Russia. Trump has reportedly consulted military and intelligence advisors on every possible outcome. In the meantime, the whole world watches closely as every single decision carries unprecedented stakes. Trump claims that he stopped India-Pakistan nuclear war. Yes, during a White House meeting with Pakistan's Prime Minister, Mr. Shehbaz Sharif, Trump claimed that he prevented a nuclear clash between India and Pakistan during the India-Pakistan war. He described his diplomatic interventions as very important just to prevent the disaster. Here, experts remain very skeptical, but note the claim underscores the United States' influence in South Asia. Pulwama Balakota crisis. Well, analysts link Trump's claim, the previous one, 2019 India-Pakistan tensions, to this war, the latest one. India maintains that it acts independently in any security matter because these are the internal one. Well, this assertion raises question about extent of foreign influence on regional nuclear wars. Well, Trump's deal-maker image here, US President uses these claims to bolster his reputation as a global problem solver ahead of the Nobel Prize. Well, his messaging aims to show that he can manage volatile conflict where others might fail. In fact, supporters see it as a proof of his decisive leadership on global affairs. Houthis' drone threat in Israel, Iliad. Israel's Red Sea resort faces repeated Houthi drone attacks. Authorities installed concrete bomb shelters on the beaches just to protect the civilians. While the city's tourism industry is impacted as visitors wage safety concern over the vacation plans. Houthis target southern Israel, while the targets are seen as Iran-backed strikes in solidarity with Gaza. The IDF successfully intercepted many of the drones, but psychological impact on the residents remained really high here. Experts warn that these attacks signal an increasingly regionalized conflict. Regional implications of Houthi attack here? Well, analysts say that the strikes test Israel's southern defenses and form part of Iran's broader regional strategy. Continuous drone attacks could stretch Israel's military resources further. Neighboring nations monitor closely for any spillover risk. United States military presence near Iran intensifies. KC-135 Satro tankers and support aircrafts have arrived at Al Udeid Air Base, signaling heightened readiness in the Gulf. Now, here Pentagon officials call it a deterrence measure amid the rising tensions. Regional allies have been briefed on the increased American presence as well. Iran responds with alert here. The Iranian Revolutionary Guards have placed naval forces on extraordinary alert and hinted at a possible closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Well, Tehran warns that any hostile move could trigger strong retaliation. Energy and shipping analysts are watching the situation very closely. Global energy markets at risk. Closure of Strait of Hormuz could disrupt 20% of global oil supply, impacting countries worldwide, including India. Prices could spike high, and that too overnight, affecting transport, energy, consumer market, and that too globally. Well, investors are closely monitoring every single development in the Gulf geopolitics. Tomahawk missile debate continues. Trump seeks clarity on Ukraine's use of Tomahawk, walking a very fine line between support for Kyiv and avoiding direct war with Russia. European leaders urge caution, fearing escalation could unify Russia's ally. Any move could influence the broader strategic balance in Eastern Europe. While Putin's escalation warning, Russia calls for United States missile support to Ukraine a point of no return, threatening a systematic military response. In the meantime, analysts warn that this could involve cyber attack, proxy strikes, or maybe NATO-targeted actions as well. The international community remains on high alert for any type of miscalculation. Syria violence near Israel. Fighting erupts between Syrian government troops and US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces in Aleppo province. In the meantime, civilians they suffer casualty and mass displacement as well. The fragile ceasefire risks collapsing amid the deep-rooted tensions. Kurdish region under pressure right now. Kurdish leaders accuse Assad's regime of attempting to control through food and fuel cuts. In the meantime, US military advisors continue asserting SDF forces. Regional powers including Turkey and Iran remain closely involved in the conflict's trajectory. Israel watches northern Syria closely. Chaos in Syria brings Iran-backed militia closer to Israeli border. Israel is quietly reinforcing north defenses, but analysts fear that any instability could spill over into Israeli-controlled territories. Egyptian president message on Palestine. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi warned that Middle East peace cannot exist without justice for Palestinians. He emphasized that there is a need for East Jerusalem as a Palestinian capital. His remarks mark a strong stance against the regional diplomatic effort. Egypt pushes for Palestinian statehood, while Cairo mediates Arab positions amid the Gaza crisis, warning Israel that peace has limits without Palestinian rights. Now here, security forces in Sinai, they are working to prevent border spillover. The message signals frustration with ongoing Israeli military action. US hints at recognizing Palestine, while Trump's White House says that recognition is possible but only if Hamas steps aside for a transnational government. But here, analysts say that this could pressurize both Israel and Palestine into negotiations. The announcement signals a potential historic pivot in US foreign policy. Aiden Menes defects to Russia. Britain's soldier Menes, he burns his UK passport citing opposition to anti-terror law and joins Russian military. In fact, Russian media celebrates his defection as symbolic support. Western nations view that particular act as political and diplomatically sensitive. Couple Raghu visa nightmare. Indian origin, Arkansas resident, his name is Kapil Raghu, faces deportation after perfume was mistaken for opium. Yes, you heard that right. Authorities confirmed it was a misunderstanding, but bureaucratic error escalated the case. Well, the story highlights flaws in the US immigration and law enforcement procedures. Human cost of Raghu's detention. Well, family suffers financially and emotionally with prolonged ICE detention and revoked visa, putting lives at risk. Well, his wife works multiple jobs to cover legal fee, while his children face emotional strain. In fact, advocacy groups call for reforms to prevent the similar cases. Global implications of local events, from activism to diplomacy to individual protest. Every story underscores how local actions ripple into international crisis. Decisions in the courtrooms and boardrooms, they can affect millions globally. That's all for now. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and come back on TimesXP same time tomorrow for the latest news that matters the most. I'm Driti Atri. See you next time.